Hello, welcome to another edition of Talking Basketball Podcast. I am Mark.
I am Paul. Hello.
Paul, we've got a guest with us.
Mark, we have got a fantastic guest today.
Does it get any better than this?
It does not get better than this. Look, today we have got one of the key voices for the Orlando Magic. He was part of the Orlando Magic Daily. That was one of the original fan resources for the Orlando Magic alongside the Orlando Pinstripe Post and the Third Quarter Collapse. He was part of the Orlando Magic Daily podcast, which moved on to the Locked On Magic, and the @OMagic Daily currently has more than 12,000 followers on Twitter. Mark, without any further ado whatsoever. Yeah, now stand and cheer for your voice of Orlando Magic, Locked On Magic, Philip Rossman-Reich.
I don't know how to live up to that intro, guys. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being on.
You can
Absolute
see we're
pleasure.
inspired by Orlando in many ways.
Absolutely. That was a good Paul Porter impersonation.
You know what? I genuinely believe this, that Paul Porter is the greatest voice in the world. I genuinely believe that. Everything that I definitely do for the Portsmouth Force, I just copy what he does. And I'm not the only person by a long stretch who would do that.
It's so good, isn't he?
Yeah, from everything I know, he was like one of the first guys to like really put a lot of like energy into his calls. And like I'd always heard rumors that the NBA asked him to tone it down because he was like mocking the other team too much in some of his calls in like the 90s.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
brilliant.
that was always the rumor. I don't know if it's true. That was always the rumor.
I like the classic he always does in Magic is when there's a travel and he goes, traveling. I love that. I tried that once and I got told off by a referee, National League in the UK. It was just like, no, none of that. It was like, what? Paul Porter does it? Also, you know, I got to mention, just because he's also an inspiration when we talk about the Orlando Magic, is Simon the Music Guy as well. Definitely a lot of the stuff he does, we completely copy and emulate over in the UK as well. So when we're talking about Paul Porter, in my mind, you've got Paul Porter and Simon the Music Guy. I put them kind of in the same bracket.
Oh yeah, 100%. And
absolutely. Magic have always had a great like in-arena experience.
Yeah, that is a funny thing, isn't it? Because when you go to some other arenas, you go, oh, there's, you know, not to say all different shapes, but there's an ambience. And because Orlando has quite a family orientation in many respects, you are surprised by the sound and how much is there. Because you would just think, oh, we get maybe a level of tourism in there, etc. But it is just packed, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like the Magic have always done a very good job of engaging everybody. Like they know they get the families, they know they get the locals. They do a lot to bring tourists in. Like, I mean, I've been to games, especially when the team wasn't as good, where I'd leave the games and there'd be a line of tour buses because they would literally sell Magic tickets as part of like traveling parties from Brazil. Like you buy your Orlando travel package and you get, you know, tickets to the parks, you get the hotel, and you get a couple tickets to a Magic game, and they'd be bussing people in. And it's just, you know, it's always a different energy in the building, you know, at all times, you know, especially when the team was maybe struggling a little bit, a little different now. Like definitely people are a little more engaged with the game, but the Magic have always done a good job making sure if you're going to a game, you're going to see great basketball and you're going to get a good show on top of that.
So we all know you very well from listening to all of your updates and your in-depth analysis. Where was your love from basketball? Where did that start?
I mean, it started at a very, very, very young age. You know, like my parents were big basketball fans. They took me to all the games growing up. You know, I was, you know, growing up, obviously you had Shaq and Penny was kind of the team that I grew up on in the early 90s, in the mid 90s. And, you know, I was at all those games, and it was hard not to just get completely enwrapped in it and just completely feel the energy in that building, especially the old building, the old Orlando Arena. It was impossible not to feel just this really this energy about it, and I fell in love like instantly with the game and with the whole NBA. Like just fell in love with it. I remember just growing up in like first grade, just first thing I would do every morning when I got the paper was go check the NBA score, see who won all the games, and just kind of keep track of what was going on around the league. And that's obviously grown into a career of sorts.
I love that old TD Waterhouse. That was a lovely
Yeah,
arena.
that was a good building.
That was a nice building. That I remember the fountains outside.
Yeah.
And then you go out there and you have all those fountains, and then all the radio stations will be around the outside, just drumming up some noise. What a great atmosphere. Great atmosphere there.
I actually did have a question. Talking of arenas, just going from old arena to new arena. So for Philip, what is really clear, but just talking about the old arena and new one, is the difference in, I'm going to say, crowd volume. So you had the old, arena always had that really good reputation for atmosphere. And historically, the new arena, Kia Centre, I know there's been talk about bad acoustics. I've heard that a lot, is the word bad acoustics. However, last season, you can't say that.
No.
It felt like the crowd interaction. Now, I don't know what it is. Was it the intensity of the game? Is it the fact that, there's a young team that are beating their chest, that they're proud to be Orlando Magic players, creating that atmosphere, but it feels like the roof has just been ripped off and that whole acoustic argument has just gone out the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, look, the way the two buildings were set up, like the old Orlando Arena, TD Waterhouse Center, was built much more compact, and like you definitely felt like you were always on top of the action. Like you just feel closer to the court, and so that trapped noise in, and that made it feel louder. The Amway Center is a lot more open. It's a lot bigger. It's designed to be kind of your modern arena, a little bit more open. It's designed for concerts as much as it is for basketball. But honestly, like the Magic moved into that building in 2010. They made the playoffs in the 2011 season, the 2012 season, and then they didn't make the playoffs again until 2019. And they really didn't have a team to get excited about until this year. And honestly, like you could feel it during the 2023 season. It wasn't just curiosity. Initially it might have been curiosity of, the Magic have the number one pick. Let's go see the number one pick. You could feel in the 2023 season, so last year, not this year, that people were really beginning to get invested in this team, and you could feel that energy building, and you could feel it in the noise level as much as anything. It was never as loud as it was in Game 6 of the playoffs this last year, that you could feel that energy building. You could feel just a different temperature in the stadium almost, with how fans were invested. And I've always said Magic fans are kind of a sleeping giant. I've always felt that building could get loud. I've heard that building get really loud for some other events. Most notably, probably the loudest I've heard that building before this season was AJ Styles' premiere at the Royal Rumble in, I think, 2016, 2015. His WWE debut at the Royal Rumble that year. And then also probably the other time I heard that building like super loud was the night after WrestleMania. I'm sorry, I'm a wrestling fan. I'm not going to apologize for that. The night after WrestleMania, when everyone booed Roman Reigns and he just gave the 3-word promo and left, and I just remember just like how loud that building was for like 5 straight minutes booing him, and then he dropped that promo. I was just like, I'm a fan now. I can't complain about that.
Oh, amazing.
But that's neither here nor there. So the building can get loud, but it's got to have a reason to get loud. It's not just gonna be loud on its own. And obviously, the Magic over the last 2 years have given a lot of people reason to believe in this team again.
Do you think there's more? I mean, that is really interesting, by the way, having that you actually have a live almost metric to where you can say, this is how loud it could get.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, because not many places have that. So that's really interesting with that. But do you think that more people are being brought to because the team and Paolo, they've created this energy and it's such a youthful team? Is that bringing new people to come and watch? Do you think it's injecting that sort of environment? It's
obviously you generate new fans, but like honestly, the biggest thing that I have experienced over the last year is, all my friends know me as the Magic guy and know that I followed this team even through the worst years. But I've had more people say, I haven't really watched the Magic for 5, 6, 7 years, and this team got me back and really got me believing in them again, and believing and wanting to watch basketball again. It's yes, you're going to get new fans, and there's always a new generation that's being exposed to the sport, but I'm seeing a lot of people coming back to the Magic, and again, just like the Magic have given people a reason to show up and cheer, and I think that's a big part of this puzzle too.
I mean, wow. You started off with Shaq and Penny, and then you've had a bit of a roller coaster there with the Magic, haven't you? Let's be fair.
A little bit. It's it's character. It's you build character that way.
That's a word for it.
I've got something exciting for Phil as well, Mark. Last time the WWE were in the UK, we went and watched. Mm-hmm. We saw a 4-way. And this is going back a while. But these were the great days. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Mankind in a 4-way fight.
Attitude Era, wasn't it?
That was great.
Yeah.
The volume there was just off Wembley Arena.
Yeah. Look, wrestling fans are very good barometer, because like the whole industry is based off crowd reaction. So you get a good crowd reaction, you know it.
I remember going to the you said about crowd reaction, that one which was the Indiana game, and this would have been 2019.
Oh, Indiana! Yeah. I remember they were a strong team. Let's right.
Like we were down, so we were up by like 12 or something, and then suddenly it was like a 13-point deficit. All of a sudden, we're like, where did that come from? They went on a run. And it was the shortest game,
so
in league history, because there was no fouls or something like something.
Philip, you'll know
like
about
this.
You'll know about this when you get into the front. I think it's front
4 rows or something,
10 rows or something like that. You can go to the VIP bit, and you got the free bar and stuff like that. So it's like brilliant. So I wasn't driving, so I was like, wow, I'm really going to enjoy the bar. And it was like the shortest NBA game, because you only get the bar for the first 3 quarters. It's like, what?
Yeah, that was good.
The shortest game in NBA history. But that was arguably one of the best views we've ever had at the at an NBA, at a basketball game, full stop, because we were center court, row 4. You could see the refs looking at each other like, was that a right call there? You could see people's eyes. You could see the aggression. It was amazing.
On each level, would you say there are places that you would recommend if people were going at different, because obviously there's price caps per where you're sitting.
Yeah.
But would you say that because obviously as you go down in the tiers, the experience level goes up. You get more noise. You hear the contact of the players. That's one of the things.
I think the biggest thing is the closer you are to the court, the more appreciation you get for how big and athletic these guys are. Yeah. Like it's one thing when you're watching on TV, everyone kind of looks the same height, the same size. Certainly like higher up in the upper bowl. And like, look, I'm a big believer, go to the games. Like I want the experience of being in the building. Like I want that energy. So I will always prefer to be in the stadium rather than watch at home if I can help it. Even if it's a seat up in the nosebleeds, like, I will sit at the very top of the stadium to be in the stadium. But I think something that you lose watching on TV or watching from up there, not that those are, not that you shouldn't just sit there, is you lose the athleticism and size of the players. And when you sit down low, when you sit that close to the court, you really kind of see and feel how big these guys are, and get an appreciation for, this stuff isn't easy. Like the holes that they're looking at are really small. Like I remember I was like my media seats for games are courtside underneath the basket, and the Magic were playing a preseason game. So this is just a preseason game. And I remember watching Anthony Black. He's playing his 4th game of his professional career. And I'm right behind him. So I'm like literally seeing what he sees. And there's this tiny little hole that opens up for a pass, for like a long bounce pass to Trevelyan Queen. This was against, I think, Flamengo in the preseason. And I was like, there's no way he's going to throw it there. Like, and I saw him like rearing up to throw it. I was like, there's no way he's going to make that pass. That's just impossible. That's just like such an impossibly small hole. And he made the pass. Queen made the layup. And I was just like I go to a lot of games. I've seen a lot of stuff, and I'm still blown away by a lot of things that I see there. And again, I think the closer you are to the court, if get as close as you can to the court as you can, so you can begin to kind of see and feel a lot of this, and feel a lot of this kind of action and what they're seeing and feeling.
I think the first one we saw in our last trip was a preseason game, so we thought, they're not going to be going too hard. When we were down, and you thought, as we did a little walk around the court, you think, oh yeah, we can hear that impact, and it's like they're backing them down. This is preseason, and there's the contact.
Got a point to prove, haven't they?
Yeah. And you just think that's preseason. I mean, obviously, look, we're talking preseason. Where does your end and beginning for each of the seasons? Because there's obviously a bleed, isn't there? Because we have all of these things going on with trades.
Yeah.
Is it a quiet time for you? I guess that's
the quiet time's August. So like, once summer league ends, like things quiet down. Like, we got the Olympics coming up. I follow the international tournaments, but once summer league ends, that's kind of when I do my big exhale and be like, okay, I can, let me slow down. I could slow down the pace a little bit. Locked On goes from 5 days a week to 3 days a week for a month and a half. That's kind of when I say, okay, let me hit some pause. Let me reset myself a little bit. Let me get myself ready for the next season. Start really thinking about the next season, because everything is just so, there's always something going on. Like, even like right after the season ends, I do a player evaluation series, and I'm thinking about, okay, how did everyone perform this season? I'm thinking about, okay, who are the free agents? Who are the draft picks? It's like, I did a crash course on the draft in about a month, just because like I was so focused on the season. You don't get a lot of time to kind of sit and breathe, and the NBA takes its big pause after summer league. Once summer league ends, that's when the NBA kind of says, okay, everyone go on vacation. We'll check back around Labor Day as we get ready for training camp. And that's kind of how I feel. I take that month. There's like 2-3 weeks off. Those 2-3 weeks to kind of like reset my battery a little bit. I do some college football stuff, to get ready for college football season and go from there.
So that's when you go to the parks.
I tried. Yes, I go to the parks then. I try to give myself a mental health day at the parks every month, every couple of weeks or so. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Just every couple of weeks, just pop down to the park. Yeah.
And I was there yesterday, man. It was great.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw the post. Look, I gotta throw this in as well. Whilst we're talking about Disney and stuff like that, is you're a Fulham fan in the UK,
yes.
Is that right? Why yes. Fulham, by the way?
So when I started watching soccer, obviously, I'm a U.S. men's national team supporter, unfortunately. Again, character.
Someone has to be.
Yeah, someone has to be. And so when I first started watching them, Clint Dempsey was my favorite player, and he played for Fulham.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, I want to start watching the Premier League. I want to start getting more into soccer. And so I started reading up on Fulham. It was like, they have a great tradition of American players. Like Brian McBride was on the team. Carlos Bocanegra was on the team. They've always had a great tradition of having American players on their team. But as I was reading through their history, I was like, oh, this is like a try-hard team that beats good teams but loses to bad teams. They're like just perpetually in the middle of the table. And I thought to myself, this is literally the 2000s Magic, the T-Mac era Magic. These are my people. They're like, I understand completely what this franchise is about. And I was all in at that point. I was just like, there is no doubt in my mind, this is the team I have to support if I'm going to follow this league.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you indulge me, Philip,
okay.
I'm going to throw out an argument for a second team for you.
Okay.
So we're based in Portsmouth.
Okay.
So you've got the Premier League, you've got the Championship underneath, which we've just been promoted to. So
congratulations on that.
Portsmouth Football Club, short name is Pompey. We have lots of similarities to Orlando Magic. So one, we both wear blue. That's a great start.
Okay, that helps. That helps.
We both wear a Nike kit, and this is the thing I'm hoping is going to sell it for Philip. The owner of Portsmouth Football Club is the former Disney CEO, Michael Eisner.
Oh, really? Okay.
So there's your Magic
luring you across.
Portsmouth connection.
Hey, the championship's kind of hard to find here in America. Trust me. When Fulham was down there for three or 4 years, it was really hard to find Fulham games on TV. But yeah, no, I mean, there's still like the thing I love. Like I honestly love the whole English football tree. There's just so much passion, and it's like every club is unique. Every club has its own culture, and it's just like you find like I love that. There are diehard fans for like every small team in that country, and it's so great. It's just so different from American sports culture. And like, look, I've been a Magic fan my whole life. I've seen people jump off the bandwagon. I've seen people who are fans of all the big clubs. I'm just like, why are you a fan of that club? Like, there's no reason for you to have a connection to them other than that they win, and you just want to be a front runner. And I say that to everyone I meet who's a Manchester United, Liverpool, or any of those teams fans, because just like you're just front running. Like you don't have a connection to that team. There's no reason. There's no reason for that. Like pick a team with some character, for crying out loud. But like I love the whole tree and how and like how passionate the fans are everywhere. Like I've never been to London. I've never been to London. I've never been to England, but like going to Craven Cottage is on my bucket list just because
wow.
like it's a nice little stadium. It's a nice little stadium, like beyond that, but there's just so much character in each one of the teams. It's so cool.
So let's put that down as Philip's going to think about it.
Okay, I'll think. Yeah, I'm going to think about
as Portsmouth as a second team.
Yeah, it's a maybe. I mean, look, Philip, you mentioned that about it's very difficult to find on TV. It's also quite difficult to find anything about Magic sometimes on TV.
Yeah, that's a fact.
And why is it that you have like, I want to say small market teams, but so some of our listeners might not be familiar with that terminology, that there are small market teams essentially.
This is a great question. This is a great question.
Well, I just wonder, because like, why do you have small market teams, and why is that? I won't say a thing, but how could you explain that for people? Because
I mean, it's like maybe I come at it because I live in Orlando, and like, look, Orlando is not a small market. Like it is. There's a thing called the TV Nielsen like rates all the markets in America. The Orlando, Daytona Beach, Tampa is all grouped into one for some reason. That whole I-4 corridor. We're number 19 or 18 in the country. So like Orlando is not a small market, but I think it's this very pre-internet way of thinking about things, where to get the most eyeballs, go to the places that have the largest population. So New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Dallas, Miami to some extent. Like go to cities that have a lot of eyeballs and have a lot of like cultural cachet. And like, I tell this people all the time, Orlando is still a very young city. Like it really didn't blow up as a metropolitan area until Disney came in 1971. So it's, compared to other cities that have major sports teams, it's very, very young. It has a lot of transplants. People move to Orlando. There aren't as many people that maybe stayed and grew up here. Like I joke with people, like I'm 36 now. The Magic are 36 years old. I'm like a I am literally a first generation Magic fan. Like there are people who maybe became Magic fans who lived in Orlando, supported the team, but they're also still Celtics fans. They're also still Lakers fans or Knicks fans or Bulls fans. And so you have these very large established national brands that have fans that are everywhere. And that's fine. Like I get that part. But I think it's very kind of pre-internet to say like New York matters. No, New York matters, but it make it big in Orlando. You can make it big in Cleveland. LeBron made it big in Cleveland. He didn't need Miami. He didn't need the Lakers to be a big player. The fact that they're putting Victor Wembanyama on TV 20 times as a rookie, yes, there's a novelty. He's an interesting player, but he's in San Antonio. He's going to be on national TV plenty because he's someone that draws eyeballs. And so to me, this notion of a small market is outdated because it's about drawing eyeballs. And I think about this a lot with the NBA, because the NBA is starting to move it's starting to transition to its next era. LeBron could retire any season now. Although he may play till 50, who knows? Steph Curry is toward the end of his career. Kevin Durant is toward the end of his career. The NBA needs to make new stars. And yes, it's good that the Knicks are, I'm always happy when any team is good, but the NBA to me needs to make its new stars, and they need to make it clear, just like the NFL kind of has among American sports, that you can be a star anywhere. And so I think but the NBA to me, they're progressive in like everything they do business-wise, except for their TV partners. They still lean very heavily on New York, on Boston, on the Lakers, on the Clippers in LA as well, on the Bulls, even if those teams aren't always that great. And it's because they believe those teams hold a lot of cultural cachet that they'll attract viewers just by being on TV. And I think that's, to me, and maybe they probably have more data to tell them otherwise, that's a very old school way of thinking. If I were the NBA, I'd be saying, hey, let's put Paolo Banchero on TV 3 or 4 times and start conditioning our audience to view him as a star. This is the biggest thing to me. I don't want to make this all about the Magic. Like, I'm obviously biased on that front, but after the Pacers did what they did in the in-season tournament this year, they got to the championship game. They had this big TNT game against the Celtics. They're so fun to watch. They play fast. They score a lot of points. The NBA should have looked at that in-season tournament and said, this Pacers team is a lot of fun. Tyrese Halliburton is a star. We should be trying to turn him to a star. We should be trying to make him a key player or condition our audience to think like, this is a star you should watch and care about. They should have gotten 2 or 3 additional national TV games in December and January just to keep them fresh, just to keep them, their hot thing, keep them fresh for everybody. The Pacers had just 1 national TV game. The rest of the season was in February. The NBA didn't add any additional games for them. And so the Pacers, they didn't take advantage of this kind of like frenzy that they created with the in-season tournament, which was what the point of the in-season tournament was. And then they essentially ignored the Pacers the rest of the year. And then they made the Eastern Conference Finals. And it was a surprise to everyone. And yeah, it was surprising that they made it there as a 6th seed, but it shouldn't have been that big of a surprise because the league should have conditioned everyone to say, hey, this team's pretty good. We want you to watch them because they're pretty good. It's the same way I felt about the Magic. Everyone seemed surprised the Magic made the playoffs and were the 5 seed this year. But if you watch the whole year, you'd be like, no, the Magic were pretty good. But if you only watch the national TV games, the Magic had 1 national TV game in February. It'd be like, where did this team come from? Like, I don't know who Paolo Banchero is. I don't know who Franz Wagner is. Like, a lot of the conversation people are having about Franz Wagner is based off of a 7-game sample size because the playoffs are the only impression people have of him rather than the Magic being part of the season story throughout the year. So I think the NBA, like, again, back to the kind of big market, small market thing, to me, it's just safety. You know that these are proven brands, proven teams that will draw some eyeballs. Instead of just tell the story you need to tell. You have a great product. Cater to the audience by saying, hey, sample this team. Like, you'll still get your Knicks, you'll still get your big teams. Don't worry about that. They're a key part of the story of the season. But let's condition our audience to think that every team is important. That way you don't get to a situation where there are just teams that, like the Magic, that everyone, including the national media, just outright ignore.
I don't know if this is a saying that would be familiar to Americans, but missing a trick. Have you ever heard that saying?
I think I can infer what that means.
Yeah, the NBA's missed a trick there because you're right.
I think so too.
When you look at the Pacers, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure they beat 4 out of the 5 teams in the East to get to the finals.
Yeah,
where they took
in
on
that
the Lakers.
In-season. Yeah. I really enjoyed the in-season. I know a lot of people were up and about.
It was great.
I loved it because it just injected some energy, and the crowds were going crazy for it. And
it was fantastic. It was I watch English soccer. I actually had the Orlando Magic UK guys on my podcast to try and explain to my audience why in-season tournaments are fun. When they pitched the idea, I was just like, I'm all in on this. This is going to be amazing. And people don't understand how awesome this thing's going to be when they actually execute it. It sounds confusing now. And The standing system was confusing. I'm not going to debate that, but like it was awesome. Those last couple days of group play, the single elimination games, they were awesome. And I'm hoping the NBA makes a few tweaks here or there, but is going to run this thing back and do it again next year.
What tweaks?
The biggest tweak I would make is if point differential is going to matter, if that's going to be a tiebreaker, limit it to 20. You can't lose or gain more than 20 points. That way you don't have the situation like you have on the last day where teams are running up the score. Like the biggest complaint players had where that coaches were trying to run up the score on people and embarrass them and do it in really like overt ways. And it just sat really wrong with a lot of people. So let's take that out, limit it to 20 points and go and move forward really with the same system. I don't think you need to change very much. I thought it worked really well.
That's what we have in that's what Paul said about with the National League.
Youth basketball over here, whereas teams will go up, you get top versus bottom, and they might beat them by 150 and beat their chest about it.
Pointless.
If you made it 20 or 30,
like
doesn't.
I'm typically a believer of if you want to stop them, stop them. Like players should not stop trying hard. Like that's important, but like, the Raptors were ticked off that the Magic tried to run the score up on them. Like the Celtics were really ticked off that the Magic tried to run the score up on them a little bit and then went out and beat Chicago by 30. And you could see Joe Mazzulla like talking to Billy Donovan mid-game is like, hey, we need to win this game by like 35. I'm sorry, dude. Like let's eliminate that kind of gamesmanship.
Yeah.
These are pros. Treat them with a little bit of respect and simplify the math a little bit. Like that last day trying to figure out the math was really hard.
I've got a great question here, but I'm going to come back to it because we're talking about things that are changed in the in-season tournament. That wording in itself, I would change the in-season tournament, the NBA Cup.
Yeah, I think they're calling it that now. I don't know, but yeah, I agree.
Mark, we've been saying it on the podcast for 6 months.
I could double check. I know it's like the Emirates Cup now because Fly Emirates is sponsoring it now. But like I think I agree. Like to me, like the big thing that I've been like pitching to everyone is like everyone's kind of come up with these like complicated ideas. I'm like, no. Simple. Like don't overcomplicate this thing. We got a short window to get this thing in. Just make it really simple and execute it. And look, I think they did it really well last year. They'll make some tweaks and move forward.
And I love the actual finals. The Final Four I thought was brilliant. We talked about the actual in Vegas, the entertainment side of it. It looked
just putting the cup and having to walk past that trophy.
Yeah.
And you saw all the players and they're like, I'm pretending I'm going to cool about it. And every single one wanted that trophy. And they should just do that all the time. Just walk past that. That's what you're fighting for. And then suddenly they're all, oh, actually, this is a real thing. There's a tangible trophy. This means something. Not just dollar, not just eyeballs on me. And
these are super competitive guys. You put a trophy in front of them that they can win, they're going to go for it. It's not nothing.
And it's a platform, as you said, like people like Tyrese
we liked
Halliburton.
the trophy as well, didn't we? The MVP, not as much, but the actual
main
cup,
trophy.
that was nice.
That was nice. But Tyrese is increased his own stock just by outperforming, using it as a platform and raising his stakes. And then when come around to playoffs, everyone's like, well, we know what we're going to expect from him because he's given a glimmer to it. I mean, look, we're going to talk playoffs. Let's get it over with. Let's rip that Band-Aid off. What happened? Playoffs this
year. For the Magic? Or
yeah.
I think a lot of it was, I think, a really inexperienced team and a really flawed team. Like the Magic, were the worst offensive team that made the postseason this year. And I think those flaws became apparent throughout the course of the series. When they made shots, they won. When they didn't make shots, they lost. I mean, I wish there was something more complicated to say than that. But as much as I hate bringing it up, Franz Wagner going 1 for 17 in a close game, that hurt. Jalen Suggs, I think, was 3 for 13. So you had 2 of your most important players have probably their worst game of the series in Game 7. And again, in a series that was really defined by very narrow margins, that mattered. I remember talking to everyone after Game 3, and I was talking to like Magic people and like people around the team. I was like, this series is going to turn on a close game, and whoever wins that close game is going to win the series. And Game 4 ended up being a blowout, but Game 5 was the close game, and the Magic came back, won a close game in Game 6. And so, they weren't far. For as flawed as his team was, as inexperienced as his team was, they weren't far from winning that series against another really flawed Cleveland team. But it just can't. The thing you don't realize in a close playoff series is it's not really always the big things. It's the little things. It's making a shot here or there. It's going up with your left hand for layup or it's going up with your right hand for layup when you should have gone up with your left, or little decisions like that. And the Magic just have to get better. Like I think that it's not the shooting thing is obviously a big thing still for Orlando, but they found a way to work around and play around it. Their defense stood tall, and I think the Magic really gained a lot of confidence, saying like, oh, we're not just a playoff team. We're a good playoff team. We just got to get better at these little things to help us get over the hump, and we're right there.
I mean, you're talking about teams, say, historically, with the Magic, you've had quite a lot of experience and some quite experienced old heads on the team. Orlando have got to be one of the youngest average ages.
I think Oklahoma City was the only team younger than them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like the Magic were the 4th youngest roster in the league last year.
Like you're talking Jalen Suggs and Franz, and they're like 22, 23, 24, right?
Yeah.
Sort of ages. Like
21, 22.
They're young guys, aren't they?
Like Tristan da Silva, the Magic just drafted Tristan da Silva. He's 23 and he's older than like 4 players on the roster already. Like we were I'm just coming from summer league practice, and Anthony Black and Jed Howard, who are 2 rookies, they're both 20 years old. We're joking like, yeah, it's kind of weird. Tristan's older than us, but we're the ones giving him tips and telling him what to look for in these games. And he's old. He's like not significantly older, but he's a couple years older than us.
You mentioned, the reason I'm saying that is because you mentioned earlier about with LeBron and those eras passing. And when we had, if you want to say, go back to like the formation and the years of the early Magic, and you had a mixture of old players mixed with young players. And you said you might have the Shaq and Penny, but then you have like the much older ones, like the Darryl Armstrongs and everything in this world, for example. And you have them all combined. And when you watch, say, Jordan, when he's talking on his Netflix special and so forth, it's like when he came into the league, he had all the Anthony Masons and all those sort of people that they were going up against. So you had a mixture of old people and young people. There seems to be a real divide in the NBA now. It's almost all of the older players have just suddenly disappeared, and there's only a handful left, and everyone else is super young. There's not many in that middle belt, really.
Yeah, I mean, that middle belt might be like a Paul George, who's 31, 32 now. But he's coming to the end of his prime. But yeah, Giannis and Jokic are probably your kind of middle tier guys. They're not super young anymore. Like I think Giannis is 28, 29 now. They're not super young anymore. They're in their primes, and so it's no surprise that like Denver is among the title contenders every year, and that Milwaukee believes they're a title contender. Like those are the guys that are kind of at the peak of their powers. But you're right. Like everyone can clearly see the future of this league beginning to take shape and take form. I would describe this year's playoffs, the 2024 playoffs, as a changing of the guard in a lot of ways. And again, like I think this is a really exciting time. We are preparing for the post LeBron NBA, and much the same way that we were preparing for the post Jordan NBA. There are a lot of guys who are already getting big game experience who are ready to take the mantle, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. They're going to be around for the next 10, 12 years. Them winning their first title is so big. Luka Doncic getting to his first finals, Anthony Edwards in the conference finals, Tyrese Halliburton in the conference finals, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on his first really good team. You've got, I would definitely put Paolo Banchero in the group of young players who are going to be taking that mantle and are still just kind of figuring their way out through the league. It's to me, there is no more exciting time to be an NBA fan than right now. Because yes, you're losing some proven guys. Steph Curry is toward the end of his career. LeBron James is toward the end of his career. Kevin Durant's toward the end of his career. There are still a lot of really fun guys in their primes, like Donovan Mitchell and Giannis and Jokic and a lot of those guys and a lot of those guys. But to me, like so many fun young players who are already making their imprint on the league. And that didn't even get to Victor Wembanyama, who's going to be very, very good. To me, that's just so exciting. And I hate the doom and gloom people have about the NBA sometimes, because it's like, it's just not true. Like, this league is in really healthy shape right now because there's so many young players who are demanding your attention right now.
And talking of new players, we got to talk about Caldwell Pope joining the Magic. I'm just going to highlight, he's won with the Lakers in the bubble, the Disney bubble. He's also won.
There's a flag on that.
He's all.
They still won it. They still won it.
Still won him up. But
everyone that year had to go through the same thing. They still won it.
I'm one of them. I just put a star on it. Just like the Spurs had their star.
He's got a ring, Mark, but he's also got a ring with Denver. And
yes, he has. Yeah.
You're talking about someone who is one of the best defensive players, joining arguably one of the best defensive players in Suggs now. So you're one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. It's just got a bit better defensively.
Well, I guess you're looking that you have Suggs and Anthony as point, and for shooting now Caldwell Pope's going to be in there, and you're running, is it Isaac or as power forward? I'm guessing maybe Franz as center, and then.
But you got to say you got those two guys, and then you've got the length behind them.
Yeah.
Are you talking about them making a longer championship run, especially when you've got that?
That's a good foundation.
When you've got the Caldwell Pope. That I wrote in my notes. He's a massive piece to that puzzle. He's championship pedigree. He's got 2 rings.
He is bringing some age.
Could he make a difference?
He's 29, is he?
Yeah, he's 28, 29.
How much could he teach the young guys? He's got 2 rings.
He's been to the playoffs. Yeah. He's had multiple playoff games. That's so important.
Absolutely a lot. And look, he's not here just to teach the young guys. He's here to win. Like he is leaving a championship team in Denver. He chose to come to Orlando because he said it when he talked to us on Saturday. Like, he feels they are on the cusp of competing for a championship. It's going to take some work. I don't think they're quite there yet. But yeah, I'm a big believer that having someone who's key to your roster, that was key to championship rosters, is a really big deal. Just from Magic history, like, getting Horace Grant was such a huge signing for that young Magic team. Look, Shaq was always going to be Shaq. Penny was Penny. But getting Horace Grant and kind of teaching them when to be serious and how to do their work, I think, was super valuable in elevating that 95 team to be the best team in the Eastern Conference, to get home, to win in the Eastern Conference Finals and get to the finals. I think that experience does matter a lot, and matters a lot more than people think. And look, Joe Ingles was a great veteran. Gary Harris is a great veteran. Those guys have taught the team a lot and given them an air of seriousness. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is going to elevate that to a higher level. And like you said, he is one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Pairing him with Jalen Suggs creates all kinds of possibilities to improve this defense even more and give this team a little bit more defensive versatility. His shooting is going to be invaluable. He is someone that has gravity, that forces defenses to guard him in a way that maybe Gary Harris doesn't, and that a lot of the Magic players don't. He is going to help this team tremendously grow. And like we said, like, they aren't far off. Like, they were half away from getting to the second round. We could argue they were a blocked shot by Evan Mobley away from getting to the second round of the playoffs this year. No one expected them to be there. There are now a little bit more expectations on this team to get back there, at least, if not advance further. But he is someone that's going to help them manage the ups and downs of a long season and stay focused on the bigger goal, because he's been there. And I think when he speaks, everyone in that locker room is going to listen, because it's still a young team that's eager to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And how good could this Orlando Magic defense actually become? Because it was fifth in the end. Was it top 5 best defense?
They got third.
They got second or third at one point,
and that's a huge piece they've got. Could they be the best defensive team in the NBA?
I think that they'll be close. I think who was the best? Minnesota was the best defensive team in the league. I think the element that the Magic are missing is rim protection, is just like a pure shot blocking big. And Wendell Carter is not a bad kind of paint defender. No. He's not going into erasing dunks and erasing shots. Like, he relies very heavily on his positioning. And look, he is, to me, still very good at that. But I think there's still an open-ended question about whether the Magic can be not just a great defense in the regular season, but a great defense in the playoffs with a center like Wendell Carter. And, you know, he was hurt all of last year, or hurt a good chunk of last year. This is a big year for him to prove that, because the Magic are going to be looking for ways to upgrade their lineup now moving forward. And look, Wendell Carter has a pretty robust trade market. Teams need centers. The Magic are going to have to make a decision on him pretty soon because he's extension eligible here very soon as well.
Yeah, it's a weird one with the centers because you've had some, you know, with obviously Vooch for a long time. It was a very successful center for Magic, but you know, there was a lot of stock placed in Bamba, which didn't pan out.
Did not pan out. Centers are hard to find. Like there's a reason, like the center market, the center trade free agency market this summer was not very deep. And you're seeing a lot of teams scrambling to find centers. And, you know, the fact the Magic had to pay 3 years, $25 million for Goga Bitadze speaks to what that market was, because the Magic paid a lot to retain a third center, essentially.
Right, we're talking defense. We can't not say the words Jonathan Isaac, who's probably one of the greatest defenders in his generation. That guy is scary. His wingspan, he does that. And when we saw him, it was like...
He ran past us. It was just like... Just looking right out on it.
And you just think, like, that's what... Like, everyone's been saying this about Wemby, but you go, yeah, like, he's up there with that wingspan.
I really liked it.
Great attitude. It's just such a shame with the injuries that he's been inflicted with. But they've just redone the contract. And it's one of these newer contracts where they've front-loaded it. And, you know, could you explain that? Because this year they've changed a lot of these contracts.
Yeah.
And the free agency as well, they changed the rules, didn't they? So at the end of the season. So that's why we were asking earlier about when do you sort of shut off the season? Because where the NBA changed a couple of those rules, it's been like a flurry till the end of the season, hasn't it? There's all these trades going off.
Yeah, and I don't know how much into the minutia you want to get into, like what the salary cap stuff is. It is a complicated thing. I know it pretty well. I still lean on people like Keith Smith, the Spot Track, and I go to the Larry Kuhn CBA FAQ to help answer some questions. And what the Magic did with Jonathan Isaac, I knew it was something you can do. It's been done only like a handful of times since they put it in. They didn't put it in this CBA. They put it in the last CBA.
Yeah.
It's only been done like a handful of times. And I knew it was done. I knew it could be done. And so when it was pitched, I was like, oh, like that's interesting. I wouldn't have expected them to do that. And I had to go back and read what it was. And even after like reading the FAQ about it, I was just like, oh, hold on, how does this work? Like, what do they do? So essentially what the CBA allows you to do, the easiest way I can explain, CBA allows you, if a player is entering the last year of their contract, to use empty cap room. So you have to have cap room available.
Yep.
Use empty cap room to renegotiate and extend a player's contract. And so essentially what you're doing is they're paying a player more in that first year and then setting up the contract the way you want it set up for the next 3-4 years, whatever it is. The Magic ended up adding 4 years to his contract. And so the Magic gave Jonathan Isaac an extra $8 million this summer, this season, and then got him pretty much at lower than what they were paying him under his previous contract. It's like the way the contract structure, I think it's like 15 and 25 and 26 or 25, then down to like 14 or 13 and 20 in 26, and then back up to 15 for 2 more years or something like that. It's got some weird raises and stuff in there.
And guarantees and then there's non-guarantees.
And then there's guarantees and non-guarantees. And I think the reporting is that his contracts become automatically guaranteed the next year if he plays 52 games the previous season. So, you know, very, very, very makeable efforts there. But they're protected if he has another long-term injury, and then they can get out kind of scot-free.
Some could argue that's the Grant Hill clause in there. So teams don't get burnt on injury.
They're more protected than they were with Grant Hill, and I don't think they could do the kind of guarantee, the guarantees the way they did. I don't think Grant Hill could have ever done those guarantees with Grant Hill the way that they've done with Jonathan Isaac. But essentially, like the Magic just they had this extra cap room. They weren't going to spend it on anybody. They used it in a really smart way to secure, like you said, one of the best defenders in the league. Like Like Zach Lowe loves saying he's the best per-minute defender in the league, which is a fancy way of saying he doesn't play enough for how good at defense he is. But when he is in, you feel his impact. Like you feel it in a very, very real way. And that's not for nothing. And now you have him coming back for less money than you were paying him before. All the while, the salary cap is going to be jumping by 10% every year for the next at least 3 years because of the new TV deal. The way the CBA is set up, they didn't want a repeat of the summer of 2016 when they had this like massive shock when the salary cap essentially doubled in one summer. And so everybody had cap room and there was this bonanza of spending. The NBA didn't want that to happen again. The players agreed, we don't want that to happen again either, because only those players in that year got the windfall, everyone else didn't. And so there's essentially the new TV deal, the TV deal is about to double. So the revenue coming in the league's about to double. They're going to phase it in 10% every year for the foreseeable future. Like it's going to take them a while to catch up. And so salary cap's going to explode. It's going to like really explode and raise here, but you're going to be still be paying Jonathan Isaac $15 million. The cap's going to be $160 million. It's going to be $155 million next year. You're only going to be paying him $15 million during that season, which is just insane. So the bargain of this deal, if he is everything the Magic believe he's going to be for the next 4-5 years, is going to be unbelievable. I'm not completely surprised Isaac agreed to this deal. Like, I think for him especially, getting the protection of being under contract for several years matters more than the raw dollar amount. Because he could be one step away from a massive injury anyway. That's just kind of how his career has been. But for the Magic, it's going to be a huge bargain that's going to enable them to keep Jonathan Isaac on the team, even as their payroll increases with Franz's extension and Paolo's extension coming up.
Well, I mean, Franz's extension just came in. Was it 222 for 5 years?
Can I ask on that? Do you think Franz deserved the max?
I would say not today, but I would have expected him to play well enough this season to earn the max. And, I think that at the end of the day, the Magic kind of came to the decision, this is our guy. We believe in him. And you either believe in him or you don't. If you think he's a max player, why, I think, yes, make him go prove it. Use some bargaining leverage. But if you believe wholeheartedly he is your number 2 guy that you're going to play with Paolo Banchero for the next 10 years, I get not wanting to mess around. Like, send the signal, this is our guy. We believe in him. He's going to go into the season not worrying about that. We have all the faith in this guy in the world, and just be done with it and not mess around with it. I think the Magic are carving a reputation. Jeff Weltman's carving a reputation as someone who takes care of the players. When you come to Orlando, you are going to be taken care of, both financially, with the resources you need to succeed, with the people in the building. To me, that is a big part of who the Magic are. And I think that is part of what the Magic did with the signing and saying, like, why wait? Like, we believe he's a max guy right now. Why wait? Let's just do it. Like, we can't do more. Let's just do it.
Yeah, you're right.
If it were me, I would have said, go prove it. I would have said, hey, here's a contract starting at $35 million a year with 8% raises. This will be on the table for you no matter what. Go earn that extra $3 million this summer or this season. Go earn it. We will be happy to give you a max if you continue to improve. That's how I would have handled it, maybe. I think that's maybe how they're going to handle things with Jalen Suggs. I'm kind of checking my phone because people kind of think he'll come to an agreement here soon too. But
wow, we might have an exclusive.
This would be amazing.
Maybe, like, I don't want to read. Like,
come on now, you promised that.
I look. He's being held out of scrimmages during the U.S. men's basketball training camp. He's with the select team. People are speculating that that's because they're working on a contract and it might be done, or there might be getting close to being done, and that's why they don't want him playing so he doesn't get hurt or anything. But like, to me, I'd say, hey, Jalen, here's $31 million on the table. It'll be there for you next year. Go earn the extra $2-3 million. But again, if it's only just $2-3 million in an atmosphere where the salary cap is 155, why not just give the extra $2-3 million? Be done with it. If you're willing to give it to him anyway.
Yeah, no,
not my money, obviously, but
you're right though. It is a key indicator of where they think the future of the actual organization is. Obviously with Banchero, but Banchero has to get the max as well.
Yes. So
yes.
Paolo getting the
not
max
far
is
away.
done. That's done.
Just
That's
throw
next
money
summer.
at him.
It's
And
July, whatever the first day they can agree to that deal is, that's the day that it will be done.
I saw a clip of him from a couple of days ago, I think, in training. He's a monster. Leaned up a little bit, actually, but
Like, universally, this is what people say about Paolo, and it's the experience that I had too. You conceptually understand he's 6'10", 215. Like you understand that. And it's like, okay, he's a big guy. I get it.
it's LeBron,
And then
basically, isn't it?
and then you see him in person for the first time, and you're like, oh, he's a big dude. He's a big dude. And I'm like that's how I felt the first time I saw him in person. And like I've heard from like everyone else who's like, the first time I was in a room with Paolo Banchero, I was just like, that is a big dude. Like that I did not realize, like he looks smaller on TV. You don't realize how big he is. And he's big. Like he is a man. if you know, I always hate kind of using that language, but like that's the only way I know how to describe him, is like that is a guy who dishes out a beating every time you play him, because he's so physical and he's just so big.
thank you very much for listening to this episode. That is the end of this part. But do not worry, because coming soon is the second part of this episode, and it will be available soon.